This is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have a very special treat for you. What I'm going to do today is very important whether you purchase an Omega Vert juicer or you're thinking about purchasing an Omega Vert juicer. And what I relate this to is like the first time you get in a car. So whether you buy a brand new car, you get like the stick shift car or you get the automatic car. And most of you guys may know how to drive an automatic. You literally get in the car, jump in, put it in park, hold down the brake, of course, start it up, and then put it in drive. You hit the gas and you go. So it's very simple and very easy to use an automatic car because you don't have to really think about shifting or none of that kind of stuff. But with the Omega Vert juicer, it's more like a manual transmission car, and maybe some of you guys don't know how to drive a manual transmission. So you got to get in the car, you got to turn the car on while the clutch is in, you got to put it in neutral, then you got to put it in gear, then you got to slowly let out the clutch and put the gas on so that you can drive off. Otherwise the car stalls. And then you need to figure out when to shift to the next gear and go up to the next gear and when to downshift, and then when you're braking you need to hold in the clutch. I'm not making a video about how to drive a stick shift car, but you get the idea. And that's how the Omega Vert juicer is. Now I do have a video that's called The Learning Curve of Juicers, where I explain all the different juicers and how hard they are to learn. Much like that old school VCR, right? Video cassette recorder, is that what it stands for? You know, you'd have to program that to record your shows at certain times. Now they got TiVos and all this stuff. Makes it real easy. But in the olden days, you'd have to figure out how to use that machine or you wouldn't record programs. Same thing with the Omega Vert juicer. There's a proper way to use it and an improper way to do it. And if you don't do it the proper way, you're not going to get the best results. You may see me juice all kinds of things in the Omega Vert juicer, and everything that you see me juice, I juice in it and it works great. But many people may not be having that same experience because they don't have the experience and the know-how on how the Omega Vert works. And in addition, all these techniques to fine-tune how you juice in your Omega Vert juicer are not explained in the instruction manual. And that's why I make all these videos, to explain to you how to get the most out of your Omega Vert juicer. Another really good video you might want to watch is 9 ways to minimize pulp in your Omega Vert juicer. That shares a lot of good tips on how to minimize the pulp and more effectively use the Omega Vert juicer. So this video today is actually dedicated to somebody that bought the Omega Vert juicer from us and is having some problems. And this is what she specifically told me she's juicing. So we're going to juice in the Omega Vert juicer using what she juices, and we're going to see if I get it to back up, number one. And number two, I'm going to show you the proper techniques to use the Omega Vert juicer to, number one, minimize the clogging, because some people do complain that it does clog up on the ejection port, and number two, to minimize the pulp. And actually both those things, when it clogs up, you're going to get more pulp in your juice. So those things go hand in hand. So in any case, what we're going to juice today is a standard green juice. And what we have today is simply this. We have 4 leaves of chard, organic chard. We have 1 cucumber. This is an English cucumber. I like to juice the English cucumbers instead of the standard cucumbers. The skin's not bitter. We have 3 stalks of celery. We have 1 apple. We have 1 lime. Here, this could be a lemon or lime, same difference. And we also have some organic ginger root. So all these things can be juiced in the Omega Vert juicer, but there's definitely a special technique to do it. Especially foods that are hard and fibrous, such as the ginger. This, if you juice straight ginger, it may tend to back up the machine. The other things that often get stuck in the Omega Vert juicer really bad is celery. The strings in the celery that get caught in your teeth right here, these strings get caught in the juicer. So, you know, it's best to peel your celery first or just do what I'm going to do in a second to basically avoid this. In addition, the same thing can happen with the collard greens, these long stalks of collard greens, the stem, which is juiceable, and you should be juicing it because there's a nice red pigment in there. They also have fibers that may clog up the juicer, so we're going to show you how to get around that. So before we even start juicing in the juicer, the first and most important thing when juicing anything in the Omega Vert or any other juicer for that matter is produce selection. Very important, especially when you're choosing apples. You want to get nice firm apples. You know, go to the store, press on them a little bit. If your fingers press in, you hear it kind of crunch. That means it's an old apple, and you're going to get applesauce in the Omega Vert instead of apple juice. You want a nice, hard, firm, crisp apple. The harder, the better. You're going to get the best results. The next thing, obviously, on other produce items, especially the cucumbers, you want to squeeze your produce like you're squeezing the Charmin, right? You want to squeeze it, and if it gives to pressure, that means it's getting old. Well, you don't want to be putting old things in your body. You want to get nice and firm produce, like it was just picked out of your front yard, and maybe you're picking this stuff out of your front yard. If you're not growing yourself, the next best place to get it is your local farmer's market. I encourage you to shop your local farmer's market for higher quality food that's more freshly picked and gonna probably juice better as well. So that's the cucumbers. On the celery, once again, hard and fibrous is the celery. You could get the celery hearts, which may work a little bit better than bigger stalks like this, but once again, you want it nice, hard, and firm. Lemons, of course, or limes, you want it, once again, nice, hard, and firm, not too soft and mushy. Soft and mushy things don't juice well in this juicer or most other juicers. Same thing with the chard or kale. You want it nice and firm, not all limp and wilty. So this is some pretty good chard here. The next step after you select all your produce, of course, we wash the produce, and now we're going to prepare some of the produce. So let's start off with the celery first. On the celery, generally what I do is I'll chop off the little bottom section because I don't want to juice that stuff. It's got a little bit of dirt and discoloration. The same thing I'll do with the top of the celery. So the tops of the celery I'll also cut off and discard because that's the part that's been exposed to air. And the next thing I do is I recommend when you're juicing in the Omega Vert is you want to chop up your produce. Now Omega, and in previous videos I had recommended chopping into maybe 2-inch or 1-inch pieces, but I found even that can be too big for the Vert. So what I'm going to do simply with a ceramic knife is just chop this up into little small pieces, and this is what you really need to do to get the best results in the Omega Vert. You can see here I'm literally dicing it up. You know what? And this just takes a few extra seconds to cut this up so it'll feed in and juice properly in your Omega Vert juicer. And it's just one extra step. Now, if you haven't bought an Omega Vert juicer yet, some other juicers you don't have to do this step. But you know what? With every juicer there are pros and cons. The Omega Vert juicer is a great juicer because it juices a lot of things and does a lot of things well. But on things like fibrous vegetables like the celery, you know, you just have a little extra step. But for that, you're going to get rewarded with a little bit higher yield in some cases. So you can see here, we just chopped up all the celery into small little strips. The smaller you could do it, the better. Of course, we don't want to spend all day in the kitchen either, but that's pretty good on that. On the cucumber, I just like to chop off the end here with a stem end. And on the cucumber, once again, you don't need to chop it up into big pieces. I just chop it up into fours so that it'll fit into the machine. There you go, chopped into fours. Real simple, real easy to prepare the cucumber. And on the lemon, as long as it fits into the machine, we're just going to cut it in half. And, you know, you could half it or quarter it. That's fine. So that's the lemon. Next thing is the chard. So once again on the chard, I'm going to cut off the bottom end. You can see this is the part that's kind of been oxidized. It's kind of black. I don't want to be putting that stuff in my juice. So we're going to go ahead and cut that off. Throw that on the side. The next thing is really important. You know, we're going to go ahead and line our chard up one leaf on top of another. And this is the easiest way I've found to prepare this chard. Stack them up just like that. Real simple, real easy. Then we're going to take and roll this chard leaf like you're rolling a burrito or something like that. And you're just going to simply roll it on up. And then you're going to keep it rolled up in the rolled up state. And once again, this kind of looks like celery. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to take the knife, once again, chop this chard up, or whether this is chard, collard greens, or kale, you're going to chop it up into little pieces, you know. Maybe 1/4 inch width. Smaller if you could get it, but you know what? You need to chop it up. You know, they may recommend 1 or 2 inch pieces. I definitely recommend 1/4 inch pieces. And it's just definitely going to work better. And if you don't do this, you may have some headaches when juicing with the Omega Vert. It's not going to tend to juice well because the problem is the fiber may get clogged up in the machine because all the strings in this produce. So once again, very simple step. You can see this has taken me maybe 30 seconds or less just to go down the line to cut up all these leaves actually in one fall swoop so that it'll easily feed in the machine. So here's all my collard shreds now. Once again, real simple, real easy. We're going to go ahead and put this over to one side. Next we have the apple. So once again on the apple, you don't need to dice that up. You just basically need to cut it so it'll fit in the machine. I like to just cut it in a few pieces. And yes, you can feed the apple seeds in the machine if you so desire. Some people are concerned that the apple seeds have some cyanide, which in fact they do. So you might not want to juice them so often, but that is completely up to you. So you can see here we have some pieces of apples, and I don't know, I'm probably made about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces out of the apples. That's not super critical. Then the ginger. So on the ginger, once again, you know we're going to probably just break off a couple nubs of ginger here. There's 1 nub, 2 nubs, and you know as long as you break them off, you're ready to juice. That's probably fine. If you want some more ginger, you can just go ahead and cut it off. Now you might want to cut the ginger up a little bit more because once again it does have some fibrous strands in the middle. And if I was to cut them up, I'd probably cut them this direction, you know, so the fibrous strands are not too long. So there's some ginger cut up into some pieces. So when you are juicing ginger, you want to be aware that ginger is very, very, very strong. So if you put in a big clove like this, you're going to get a ginger blast. If that's what you want, that's great. But generally, you know, you want to just use a little bit of ginger. It's really strong. So now let's review how we cut up everything. Once again, it took literally maybe a minute or so to prepare our produce properly. And that is a step towards juicing. You want to prepare your produce properly so you can get the best results. So once again, we started with the celery. You can see here we have some diced up celery. Real simple, real easy. Next, we have the cucumber sliced into 4s. Then we had the lime sliced into quarters. Then we have the chard over here. Once again, you want to make sure you cut up the stems just like this, 1/4-inch pieces or smaller. Then we have the apple. We cut this in 1/8. And then we just have some pieces of ginger. So now that we have all the pieces cut properly, now we're going to start to juice. And besides cutting everything properly, another super critical feature to get success when juicing in the Omega Vert is the ordering of what you put into the juicer. So the ordering, you could put all the celery first, then all this first, then all these, then this. You know, you could put different things in different orders, but what you want to do is you want to rotate what you're doing, and you're going to see me do that. We're going to take a handful of this, a handful of that, a handful of this, and put them in all at different times. So now let's start juicing in the Omega Vert juicer. Once again, I like the Omega Vert juicer because you could feed things in rather quickly. It has a nice larger feed chute, and it's really efficient at juicing leafy greens. That being said, if you want to juice like a little bit of everything, including what you're seeing today, fruits and everything else, the Omega Vert juicer may be a good choice for you. Please check my other videos to see how the Omega Vert juicer juices a wide variety of things and juices all different kinds of things. But that being said, if you want to juice strictly leafy greens and a lot of leafy greens, I don't necessarily recommend the Omega Vert juicer. I would recommend the Omega 8004 or 8006 juicer. Why? It's very simple, because the Omega 8004, 8006 is much like that automatic car that you get in. You just get in, put it on drive, and then you take off. The Omega 8004 and 8006 is a much easier juicer to learn. There's no learning curve. Once again, there's a learning curve to this machine. So if you don't like learning curves, you want to just plug it in, turn it on, and go, get the other machine. If you like some challenges and want to work your brain and say, hey, am I smarter than my Omega Vert juicer? Then this might be the juicer, because you're going to have to constantly think, well, hey, last time I juiced, I put this in like this and it clogged up. Maybe next time I'm going to do it a little bit different. Maybe like how John said, to see if I can get different results. And maybe you'll even learn new techniques that I don't even know about to get the best results out of the Omega Vert. In any case, let's go ahead and turn this machine on and start juicing. So now that we got it running, it runs at a slow 80 RPMs, nice and quiet. I like that a lot. Some machines run at a high RPM and may oxidize more than nutrition. That's where the Omega Vert juicer comes in, because it runs at a low RPM. It's quiet, so it's not going to wake friends or family up if they're still sleeping and you're juicing in the morning. And also it's going to preserve a higher quality of nutrition so that you could benefit by getting more nutrition out of these greens and other fruits and vegetables in your diet. So first, let's start juicing. So what we're going to do first is we're always going to start with a little bit of celery. We're going to take a handful of celery there, drop that in the machine, and we're going to wait a second and let the machine process the celery. So that's also very important. Don't just try to cram everything at once in the juicer, because you're going to back it up, and that will back up. I have a video actually called Getting Your Juicer Unstuck, and I actually make the juicer clog up on purpose by finally cramming things in so fast that it literally can't keep up. So once you stop hearing things crush up, then it's time to do the next thing. So now we're going to take a handful of the greens. So the chard, we're going to go ahead and put that in the machine. And now that we've put in two hard fibrous things like the celery and the chard, what we're going to do next is we're going to give a juicer something to work with, because the juicer has a hard problem with fibrous things, even if it's cut up, such as celery and chard. But on things like cucumbers, apples, and limes, you know, it's a lot easier for the juicer, so you always want to rotate some of the hard fibrous things with some soft stuff like cucumbers. Some other soft things you could use besides cucumbers would be like apples or romaine lettuce. Some other things that would work really well, maybe even some zucchini squash. So we're going to go ahead and put this cucumber in and let it chop off maybe more than half the cucumber, so that we got a nice flow, and we could check it out. You can see out of here we're getting some of the celery pulp and the chard pulp already coming out, you can see. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and next take some more celery, drop that in the machine, let that work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a handful of chard stems. Once again, this is the stems of the chard. Put that in the machine, and once again, you know, we're not just feeding things continually. We're listening. You can hear it still working, and you can see juice still coming out, and you can see the pulp coming out. Now yes, the pulp will come out very slow. It doesn't like flow out really fast, because this once again is a low speed juicer. But how you could know if you're ready to feed the next produce in is if this pulp completely stops flowing out of the machine. So now we could take the rest of the cucumber and put that through, because we put in, you know, celery, chard, then we did more, then we did cucumber, then we did more celery and chard. Now we're doing more cucumber. And it's very important to get this flow going, and you can see here the pulp is still flowing out of the machine. Next, for fun, let's go ahead and put a bit of ginger in there. So we'll drop a small piece of ginger in there. And we haven't even started on the apple. Maybe it'd be good now to put a piece of apple in to help clean the juicer out, because once again, apples and cucumbers are good to help push things through the machine. Carrots also work well. And you can see there, the pulp is stopped flowing, so now we're ready to put another handful of celery into the machine. Drop that in. You can hear it crush up and juice all the celery. You can see the juice come out. And the fiber is still coming out. It hasn't yet clogged up on me, because I'm following the best practices. Now we're going to go ahead and put some more leaves. Once again, another handful of chard going in the machine. And once again, after chard, what do we put? We put a little bit of cucumber. So we're going to maybe juice half of this length of cucumber in there. Once again, we need something to push the celery and the chard through the machine. Actually, we took the whole cucumber. But you can see here the pulp is still coming out of the machine. And yes, it's definitely going to come out slow. And if the pulp doesn't occupy the full distance of end to end between the pulp outlet port, you can see it's almost like only half coming out. That's completely fine. The main thing is that it's still flowing. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a piece of apple, dump that in the machine, let that juice. And the pulp is still flowing out of the machine really fast when we put the apple in. So you'll see as you put certain produce items in, pulp will come out slower fast. And you want to focus on the things that make the pulp come out fast, like the apples and cucumbers. If you're putting in something that it comes out slow, like the celery, then you want to follow that by something that makes the pulp come out faster. So that was a handful of celery. Now we're going to do a handful of the chard. And we're still flowing, not getting clogged up yet. Still working really well, but guess what? After the chard, what do we put in next? We've done it every single time. More cucumbers. So we got a cucumber here. Now I'm going to try to only put it in half. Last time it got sucked out of my hand by the Vert. Alright, there you go. About half the cucumber. And let's check the pulp out. Every time after you put something in, you want to check the pulp. Okay, is pulp still coming out? Is it still flowing freely? Has it stopped? If it's still flowing, then you're definitely good to go to feed in more stuff. If it's still coming out, then you might want to relax and let the juicer work a little bit. Once again, you can clog this juicer up, and if you clog it up, then you're going to get terrible results. It's going to get really pulpy, and it's going to be a mess to clean up. So you can see we're probably about halfway through our celery, halfway through our chard, and we haven't really even touched our apples. So it might be a good time now to put, you know, a piece of the lime in there. We'll drop that in there once again. And one of the things I like about the Omega Vert juicer is that literally no pusher should be required unless you clog up the spout. If you're using the pusher on the Omega Vert, you may be feeding things in too quickly. So once again, we put that lime in there, juice right up, produce is still flowing out, and we're going to dump in a small piece of apple. Once again, we want to let it run until all pulp stops flowing. And even though pulp is only basically halfway coming out of the ejection port, and it may be partially clogged, that's completely fine. The whole objective is that pulp is still flowing. Next, let's go ahead and put another piece of ginger. Once again, this ginger is cut up into a smaller piece. We're going to drop that in there. And we're going to follow that ginger with another handful of the celery. So here's another handful of celery. Once again, it's all in the technique. Whether you're using your Omega or Vert juicer, driving a stick shift car, programming your VCR, or even having sex, right? There's a proper technique to all these things, and you need to use a proper technique when juicing to get the best results. Next, we have a handful of the chard we're going to put in. Once again, this was right after the celery, and guess what we're going to use right after the chard? Can I hear it? We always put cucumbers in after the chard to help it push through the fibers through the machine. So here's our half piece of cucumber. We're going to push that in and just actually let it drop in. And you can see, check out this pulp ejection port. We got a nice little container here of pulp, and this is working beautifully. You know, although it is only coming out of half the port, which is fine, the pulp is still flowing, and the juicer's still running great. So next, we're going to go ahead and put some more apple in. So yes, I do have the seeds in here. I do juice my apple seeds sometimes. Sometimes I'll pull them out. Once again, the juice is flowing, and the pulp is flowing, no problem whatsoever. We're going to rotate that up. Next, we're going to put a piece of the ginger in. Small piece of ginger. We're going to follow that ginger. How about with some lime? Really get some watery lime in there to push it on through. Alright, so we're almost got a container full of green juice here. And next we're going to put in a handful of the celery. Once again, drop that in the machine. And once again, I'm listening. So you have to use your eyes and your senses when you're juicing. You want to listen. You want to hear the juicer work and crush everything up. And when it stops crushing things up, that's definitely a sign that you can put something in next. The other thing, you want to use your eyes and watch this outlet port. That's the most important port you want to look at. The pulp is still flowing, or it stopped. So it looks like it stopped, so I can feed in the next thing I'm going to feed in. And we're going to feed in some chard. So once again, we've got a handful of chard in here. We're going to feed that into the machine. And what do I put in after chard? You guys should know this by now. The cucumber. So we're going to feed half this cucumber in after this chard is completely juiced. So do I hear the chard still running through the machine? Is the pulp stopped coming out yet? Not quite. It's still moving out slowly. So give the machine some time to work to get all that extraction so you don't clog it up and you don't get bad results with the Omega Vert juicer. This is by far the best-selling juicer, and most people are floored and super ecstatic about how it works, but there's a small percentage of people that get a little bit frustrated because, you know what, we live in this fast-paced society where you wanted the juicer to come to the mail yesterday, the day before you ordered it, and I still haven't gotten your tracking number to you because the warehouse is so backed up because we're just flooded with the orders. I guess these videos are doing something, so that's pretty good, and people are getting healthier because of the videos. So once again, slow down when juicing and have some patience in life, and when juicing too. So now we're going to feed in half the cucumber there. Once again, I'm going to only let half get fed in. We've popped out the other half. After that, half the cucumber, we're going to let it run a little bit. Let's watch this pulp coming out. The pulp's pretty much stopped. We're going to feed in another piece of apple, dump the apple in there, and let it work a little bit. So you could really see I'm rotating what I'm juicing. I'm not juicing all the celery, then all the chard, and I'm not putting in whole pieces. I'm putting in little pieces, and I'm getting great results, and you should get these same results if you follow the same techniques that I'm explaining to you. Next, we're going to put in a piece of ginger. Just drop that in the machine. After the ginger, we're going to put in the core of the apple here. Drop that right in the machine. Once again, let it have some time to work, and look at that pulp start flying out of the machine when I put an apple. Alright, I'm going to put another apple in there. And watch the pulp come out, flying out right after the apple. Look, it's coming out so fast. So once again, you want to rotate things that push pulp out slow, like the hard fibrous things, like the leafy greens and the celery, with things that push it out fast, like the apples, cucumbers, and if I was juicing some carrots or zucchinis. So next, we're going to go ahead and put in another handful of the celery. Drop that right in the machine. Let the machine work a little bit. You can still see the pulps coming out. This machine hasn't clogged up yet. And that's because, once again, technique. It's on the technique. Next, Gonna put in a handful of the chard. Once again, this is all sliced up chard, diced up. Chiffonade is the correct chef's term, although I'm not a chef. We're gonna put a little bit more chard in there. Once again, after the chard, what do I put in? Cucumbers! Yeah, so we're gonna put in our last half piece of cucumber right after the pulp stops, so we're watching that. It's still moving out, so we're not gonna drop this piece in yet. Alright, so it's pretty much stopped. We're going to drop that last piece in there. So you can see all that I have left on my cutting board here are maybe about a handful of celery, maybe a half handful of chard, if that, and one small piece of ginger. So next I'm going to put a piece of ginger. If you have noticed, I generally put a piece of ginger after I put something in watery. So we're going to drop that ginger in. After I put the ginger, now we're going to put something in watery. So watery things are things that make pulp move out fast between the hard and fibrous things. So hard and fibrous things, once again, ginger, celery, and the chard in this instance. Drop that piece of lime in there. Once again, you can hear the machine work. You can see that pulp come out. Once again, you want to watch that pulp outlet. Make sure the pulp is still flowing. Now, using the right technique, in the Omega Vert, you can definitely juice for a little bit. Now, it only suggests you juice no more than 4 cups at a time if you're making green juices or anything else. If you do want to make more than 4 cups, which is one whole pitcher, you want to stop after this point and clean your juicer out and then restart for the best results. If you do try to juice more than 4 cups at a time, then you may run into more problems. So next, we're going to go ahead and juice a handful of celery. Let's go ahead and dump that celery in there, and you can see the juicer work. Another thing you want to be aware of is when you look down the juicing spout, you don't want to see any produce in there. If you see produce in there that's not getting juiced, that's a sign you're not feeding in the produce in the proper ordering to get it to push through the machine. So there you go. There's the Omega Vert single auger crushing up all that celery to give us fresh celery juice. Now, celery juice is very high in electrolytes. Very good for us. It'll also impart a nice natural salty flavor to our juices, so you don't need to add additional salt to your juices, and I don't recommend that. Next, we're going to go ahead and dump in the rest of the celery and the chard bits into the machine. And you can see the pulp still coming out. This looks like pretty much all the celery pulp coming out. And once again, we haven't got any blockages. It's because we've cut up things and we're letting the juicer take its own time to juice as it needs to. We're not cramming things in too quickly. So the last 2 things we have on the cutting board that we haven't juiced yet are the lime and the apple. So let's see, I'm going to choose to put the lime in first. We're going to go ahead and put that in there. Once again, you can see all that juice run out. I mean, the Omega Vert is really efficient at squeezing the produce and getting all that juice to run out. Next, we're going to see here the pulp's pretty much stopped. It's flowing out really slow. Finally, we're going to take our last piece of apple and drop that in the machine. And you can see it literally crunch it on up. And it's also very important, once you're done juicing the last produce item in the Omega Vert juicer, you want to let the machine run. You don't want to just turn it off and go because you may be missing some produce. Also, as you let it run, once again, if the produce is still coming out the ejection port, that means the juicer is not yet done. So you want to run the juicer until the ejection port stops running. So you can see here, the ejection port is pretty much stopped. So now we're pretty much done juicing, so let's go ahead and turn the machine off. Another complaint is, John, cleaning up juicers are so hard. Well, this one takes me literally under 3 to 4 minutes max. And let me show you a way to make that really easier. So once you're done juicing, you're going to want to do 2 things. You're going to want to, number 1, take away your juice container. And we're going to take away that, and we're going to put in a mason jar or another suitable collection jug. We're going to go ahead and turn the machine back on. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a little cup of water. So I got a little cup of water here. And this will help flush out the machine to get some of the residual pieces in the machine out of it, so it's going to be easier for you to clean. And this just takes a few seconds. So once again, we're just literally pouring this water in at a slow and moderate pace. Don't pour it in too quickly. And you can see the juice out of the spout here. This water is coming through. It's cleaning the machine. But more importantly, you can see some of the pulp starting to move out of the machine too. So that's just going to help you make it more efficient to clean your juicer. Once again, this is a very simple and easy step. Anyone can do it. It takes another 30 seconds to do this. So once the water has stopped coming out of the machine, you're going to then turn the machine off. So now we're going to go ahead and take the machine apart and clean it. The most important piece that you'll need to clean the machine is the cleaning brush that is included with the juicer. The hardest part to clean on any juicer is the juicing screen because pulp tends to get stuck in that. But with the Omega Vert juicer, they have the automatic wiping blade system, which is a silicone blade system, much like the wiping blades on your car that keeps the rain off. This actually keeps the screen clean, so it makes it a lot easier for you to clean. So next, let me show you the technique I use to clean the machine. First, we're going to go ahead and take off the top, and we're going to look on the top if there's any stuck pulp. If there is any stuck pulp, I'm going to take the pulp and put it in the pulp collection bin. In this case, there's no pulp on the top. We're going to go ahead and turn my sink on, and all you really need to do is take a little brush, whether it's this brush or a dish brush, and scrub this out. Really easy to clean, and once you just rinse this out, you can just put it aside. Next part is the screen and auger assembly. Once again, you take the screen and auger assembly out, and you'll pull this up and you'll see some pulp on the side of this, on the auger, and we're just going to scoop that pulp in to the pulp collection cup. Now, I do encourage you to basically compost your pulp collection cup. Sometimes we feed it to the dogs, mix it with their kibble. You could also dehydrate it and do other things with it. We're not covering that in this video. But next, now your auger is fairly clean. So once again, we're just going to rinse that off. Real simple, real easy. Once again, use this included brush to brush the bottom of the auger. There's a little recessed area that can be a little bit difficult to clean without the brush, so use the brush. Once again, very simple, very easy to clean that. We're going to go ahead and turn that off. Next, we're going to come back to the machine, and I want you guys to look in there. If we look inside here, there's not a whole lot of pulp left in there. That's because, number one, we fed things in a proper manner. Things was getting worked through the machine and getting into the pulp collection bucket. Now, if we didn't follow proper techniques, this area would be full of pulp. So you could look to my other video called Getting Your Vertical Juicer Unstuck. And in that video, I purposely make the juicer clog up, and this thing's full of pulp. But you can see when the juicer is not full of pulp, it's a lot easier to clean because there's less things to brush away. So next, we're going to go ahead and take this assembly, bring it over to the sink here, turn our sink on, and disassemble this. Once again, we got the wiping blade, and I just like to run some water through this. Use the brush to brush the different sides and the different parts of this. And once again, you can use some dish soap on your little brush, or better than using this small brush, you can get a standard dish brush at your local grocery store, big box store. So once this is clean, you can put that aside. Next, the screen is the hardest part to clean, but basically you're going to use this screwdriver end, push the pulp through the little hole. Then you're going to take this brush and brush out all the holes on the screen. So I like to brush like this. As I'm brushing, I'm rotating the screen. This is the most efficient way to do this. You're going to rotate and do the small holes first on the outside. This is much like brushing your teeth. You want to get all the quadrants of your mouth. Any dental hygienists out there? Then you're going to do the large part. So once again, I'm rotating the screen as I'm brushing it fairly firmly, pressing hard to dislodge all that pulp. If you do leave any pulp in the screen, then your yield in the future times will go down. Next, we're going to do the same thing. Now we got the inside. We're going to take the brush and brush out the inside of the screen and go around it. Once again, do the bottom and do the top the best that you can. You could go different directions, like this direction, or you could go like this. But mainly you want to dislodge the pulp, and I have the water running to dislodge and help get all the pulp out of there. Once again, that was real simple, real easy, and we now have a clean screen. And the next part to clean is simply the juicing bowl. So once again, we're going to turn this bowl off. And the hardest part to clean on this bowl is right in this area here, because this is where all the pulp gets stuck. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this around to the back, and you can see this little flap here. We're going to make this flap come out. Now this flap is here for a very important reason. It keeps the pulp in the machine so that you get the highest possible extraction. But when cleaning, it can be a pain because pulp gets stuck in there. So once we got that little pulp plug out, we're then going to take our little screwdriver end and stick that in. And this can be used as a tool to basically scoop out all the pulp that's stuck in there. So we're going in from the front of this direction, from the pulp outlet. After we got all that, then we're going to go ahead and turn this direction, and we're going to use this little tool, screwdriver end, to get in here like this. Now once again, you shouldn't be sticking any metal appliances or tools, screwdrivers or forks or knives in here because you can scratch the plastic. So I only recommend you use this tool that is supplied for you. So you can see here, you know, now that we've got pretty much all this pulp, this lodge is relatively going to be easy to clean. We're going to go ahead and once again take it over to our sink, turn the sink on, blast some hot water through there a little bit vigorously, take our brush, brush this out. You know, once again, you're going to want to put the brush in all the different compartments to brush out. Brush this pulp outlet out. Very important to dislodge and get all this pulp out of here. So you can see here just a few seconds of rinsing this out. All the pulp is now dislodged, and we're going to go ahead and put this aside to dry. So as you can see, that was how to juice properly in the Omega Vert juicer. I had no pulp blockages. I have a nice container of pulp, and let me tell you, this pulp is fairly dry. It's definitely you know, nice and extracted. And when you extract your own vegetable juice, you're going to get all the enzymes, all the nutrition out of those vegetables that most people aren't eating. But when you juice them, you're getting all the nutrition in the form of vegetable juice that is much easier for your body to assimilate than even the whole vegetables themselves, because when you remove the fiber, it makes it much easier for your body to digest, and you'll feel the difference right after you drink it. That's a delicious juice combination. So hope you've learned more about how to properly use the Omega Vert juicer. Once again, if you are having problems with the Omega Vert juicer, please follow these directions, and please check for my other videos, 9 ways to minimize pulp, which may give some additional tips to use. And in addition, you might want to check how to get your juicer unstuck for some even more tips on how to properly juice in the Omega Vert juicer. I personally believe the Omega Vert juicer is a great juicer for most people, although it isn't for everyone. So once again, please be sure to check my other videos to see the Omega Vert juicer being compared to other juicers, because every juicer is just a little bit different, and one juicer may fit you better than others. Once again, this is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.